al-ghayb. Get up, make wudu, pray 2 rak'at, seek to be close to Allah by calling Him by His names and qualities. And dua بظاهر الغيب when your brother doesn't know about it. عن أبي الدرداء رضي الله عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول ما من مسلم يدعو لأخيه بظاهر الغيب إلا قال له الملك ولك بمثل. In Sahih Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said there's no believer who supplicates for his brother behind his back except the angel says, and you will get the same. And the same is for you too. In another narration also, gives you a more detailed idea of the hadith. The supplication of a Muslim for his brother behind his back in his absence is readily accepted. An angel is appointed to his side wherever he makes dua and he says, Ameen, may you also be blessed with the same. Ameen, may you also be blessed with the same. This is the angel telling him that. Uwais al-Qarni was a tabi'i whose dua was answered. He was the man who Umar ibn Khattab spent years seeking him, finding him. Every time someone came from Yemen, he would ask because his dua was accepted. He said, supplicating for your brother in his absence is better than visiting him and meeting him. You know the reward of visiting and meeting your brother? He said, this is more rewardful. Making dua for your brother and sister behind their back in their absence could be better than making dua for yourself. If you need something, make dua for your brother. When you make dua for a brother, an infallible angel is saying Ameen and you get the same. So is it better to make dua for yourself and possibly no one saying Ameen, or you making dua for your brother or sister and an angel saying Ameen, you get the same. Ameen, and you're going to get the same. How many, when you heard of a brother or a sister, be truthful, in a hardship, got up, made wudu, made 2 rak'ahs, with their heads prostrate and made dua for that individual or that country or nation? Listen to this. Since we have time, let me elaborate a little bit. I want to talk about a man, and the point of this, I'm going to mention it towards the end. البداية والنهاية in تاريخ الأمم لابن الجوزي. البداية والنهاية للذهبي in الأعلام للزركلي. They mention a story about a man. His name is Abu Abdurrahman al-Andalusi, Baqy ibn Makhlad, a man who was born 201 years after the Hijrah. He was a man equivalent to Nasa'i, Tirmidhi, Imam Ahmad, similar to them in knowledge. 1200 years ago, he used to live in Spain. He was a muhaddith, faqih, mufassir, tafsir. Ibn Bashkawal said he wrote a tafsir. This man, Baqy ibn Makhlad, no one can compare to his tafsir. Ibn Hazm al-Zahiri said about his tafsir, I am firm, أقطع أنه لم يؤلف في الإسلام مثل تفسير ابن مخلد حتى تفسير ابن جرير. He said, there's no doubt in my mind, I'm adamant that there's no tafsir like that tafsir of Ibn Makhlad, Baqy ibn Makhlad, not even tafsir ibn Jarir, the famous tafsir of ibn Jarir. And this is in hadith, in tafsir. In hadith, he was a big muhaddith, a great hafiz of hadith, a great muhaddith, a great one who compiled hadith. He wrote a musnad, like that of Musnad Imam Ahmad, but even bigger than that. Books, musnad is books that compile hadith in it. Like Musnad Baqy ibn Makhlad. You have Musnad Imam Ahmad, for example. You have Mustadrak, like Mustadrak al-Hakim. Let me sidetrack a little bit to give you what these terms mean. You have Sahih, you have Sunan, you have Mustadrak, you have Musnad. What does that mean? We call the compilation of hadith by, these are some of the terms given to them. For example, Mustadrak al-Hakim, let's take Mustadrak. When you see Mustadrak before compilation hadith, means the follow-up. Mustadrak al-Hakim is a follow-up on Bukhari Muslim. He said, these hadith I compiled should have been in Bukhari Muslim. Why they didn't put them in Bukhari Muslim, I don't know. So I put them in Mustadrak al-Hakim and they belong here. Whether scholars agree or disagree with them, but that's what Mustadrak means. That's Mustadrak. Okay, so now you know that when you see it. Sahih. Sahih are like Bukhari and Muslim. They're books compiled by sections. Fiqh, Tawheed, Tafsir. Usually start off by fiqh, tawheed, and tafsir, and so on and so forth. Then you got the Sunan, like Sunan Nasa'i, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah. They're like the Sahih, compiled according to the books of fiqh, overall. Tafsir, tawheed, overall. What's the difference between Sunan and Sahih if they're compiled the same way, according to fiqh, tawheed, fiqh, and then tafsir and tawheed, or slight differences there? The difference is the Sahih has the Sahih, it has the authentic. The Ummah unanimously agreed about Sahih Bukhari and Muslim that they're authentic. The Sunan have the authentic and the weak. So that's the difference between Sunan and Bukhari and Muslim. But they're compiled in the same way. Now Musnad, like Musnad Baqy bin Makhlad, or Musnad Ahmad, Musnad means they're compiled according to the narrators. So they're compiled like they have all of Abu Hurairah's hadith together, regardless of any category. So Abu Hurairah together, Ibn Umar's all together. We go over these. This is a side issue that you should know about, especially you students and especially my students. Because don't ever consider yourself my student if you don't know this kind of stuff. Unlike those who be talking in the big terminology, giving fatwas on voting, left and right, on wala and bara, on matters of destiny of the ummah, and wallahi al-azim, the preschool material of a student knowledge, they don't even have it. That's like adding water to mud or clay. Deviance toppled with ignorance. Deviance, and that, alhamdulillah, we have solid founded people. Our students of knowledge are solidly founded people. Baqy ibn Makhlad had a compilation of hadith. It's called Musnad Baqy ibn Makhlad, compiled according to narrators. It's considered bigger than Musnad Ahmad. He has 5,000 hadith alone in it for Abu Hurairah. He compiled in it, he gathered in it over one hadith for over 1,600 Sahaba. Some scholars like Ibn Hazm said his compilation of hadith is better than the compilation of Musnad Ahmad. Some scholars disagreed, but that's the opinion of Ibn Hazm. I'm just going to show you the importance of this man. He also compiled fatawa for Sahaba, put them in books, fatawa of tabi'een by name, put their fatawa together. He has over 234 teachers. And like with any righteous scholar we mentioned, what happens with them? They go through trials. And he went through many trials. One of them is the modernist. He posed a modernist who, when he began to spread hadith, they don't like to take hadith. They want to resort to their opinions, to their mental rationale, philosophy, and all that kind of talk. So he comes with the hadith, with the Quran and the hadith. When he began to spread the hadith, they opposed him. He became a danger to them. So they sought to instigate the leaders to try to imprison and harm him. And alhamdulillah, Allah saved him from that trial. That was one of the first ones. He also faced a similar one by the blind followers of Imam Malik, the extreme blind followers of Imam Malik. In Spain, where he was living, after he brought the hadith, he was faced with these blind followers of Imam Malik. And he brought the hadith and the athar and saying, instead of being extreme followers, follow the athar. If Imam Malik said something where he didn't have a hadith, misquoted, or gave a fiqh opinion, which he get reward for, but he didn't have a hadith or something of that resort, here we have the hadith. But he was faced with these blind followers. He said, I grew the seeds of trees in Andalus that will not be cut until the judgment day. Do you know what he means by that? It means I put the seeds of hadith in Spain that will not be chopped off until the judgment day. Meaning I brought the hadith to Spain and I got people to practice taken from hadith instead of going to those who mental rationalize and the other ones who blind followers of imams, extreme blind followers of imams. He traveled to learn his deen and knowledge twice. He left Spain, one for 20 years and one for 12 years. 34 years seeking knowledge. He traveled not countries but continents in pursuit of individual hadith. You always wonder how men who traveled so much for 1 and 2 hadith here and there, on camels or on foot, we still refer to, and each one of us right now has on his laptop more compilation of hadith than they had. Yet they provided the ummah with more knowledge than we did. The reason is ikhlas. When people began to use knowledge for worldly gains, Allah took the barakah out of it. And you see someone today who write a booklet on Islam and think he's a mujaddid, whereas they wrote volumes like Baqy ibn Makhlad, and they consider themselves humble free students of knowledge. I heard there was a site that had over 6,000 volumes of books in it. Imagine if Baqy ibn Makhlad had that kind of knowledge with him, those kind of volumes of books. These were legends who made it in history. And let me tell you about these legends. Here's the common denominator in all of them. They all went through classical systematic knowledge study, students of knowledge. They were men who were moved by concern to the ummah, wherever the ummah was oppressed. They were men who faced trials. They were men of ibadah. Those are four characteristics you're going to see in all those legends who made history, the righteous part of history. Abu Lubab al-Hafiz said Baqy ibn Makhlad was among the best men I ever met in my life. We walked in the alley of Qurtuba and he had two thobs on. He took one off when a beggar asked him and gave it to him. Abu Ubaidah, Sahib al-Qibla, said Baqy ibn Makhlad used to recite the entire Quran during his 13 rak'ahs, tahajjud, qiyam at night. And during the day, he would pray 100 rak'ah. And he used to fast every day. But according to his grandson, he fasted every day but Friday. No one pop up to me and tell me, how did he do this when the Prophet deterred from that? This really, is a talk of ignorance. Before you talk, why did he fast every day? Did the Prophet ﷺ deter that? Ask, okay. But to make comments like that, I don't like to hear them. Why? Because go read the kindergarten book on fiqh, Sayyid Sabiq, and see what he says about fasting every day, and then move your way up to the advanced to hear what they said, and is it permissible to fast every day or not, before throwing comments like that. But it's a question, that's a different story. I mentioned one time about Imam Ahmad that he prayed 300 rak'ahs until he got older, he reduced them down to 150. And someone would say impossible. We heard people say it's impossible. Yes, it's impossible to you because Allah took the blessing out of your life. But for those who Allah left the blessing, no, it's not impossible. Wallahi, wallahi, I know people who I could name who have recited the Quran every single night for years. Not for like 2 or 3 nights, for years. Wallahi, I know it. Some people have blessing in their life, others don't. Baqy ibn Makhlad's grandson, look at one day in his life, how his every day was in his life. He said, my grandfather, after doing his salah, night qiyam, he would go pray the fajr in the masjid. And after fajr, he would make dhikr and recite and worship Allah. Then he would come home and renew his wudu, which is a respectable way of saying he used the bathroom and made wudu. Then he returned back immediately to the masjid because the students are waiting him. This is around sunrise. Then he would teach until dhuhr. Dhuhr time come, people would go get rest, make wudu. He would be the one in the masjid, he make the adhan. Then he would teach from dhuhr to asr. From asr he would teach adhan again until right before maghrib. And every day right before maghrib he would go to the graveyard to remember the death and get lessons from the graveyard. He would return to the house after he makes salat al-maghrib because he's fasting to break his fast every single day but Friday. Between maghrib and isha, that would be to welcome visitors, so sort of social time. And he would speak about all types of matters, worldly and religious, Islamic matters. Not 24-hour hadith and tafsir. He'd give some time of his time to those who were not students of knowledge, guests, relatives, neighbors, people who just want to talk to him about worldly matters because they like his personality. So this was the time he gave them from Maghrib to Isha. Then he would go pray Isha and come back to his house. After Isha, he would give time only to his family. And then he would go to sleep and wake up for Qiyam and then Fajr again. That's his daily schedule and routine until he died. How he met Ahmad ibn Hanbal is astonishing story. A slight portion of it, Al-Dhahabi said, was weak, but other scholars authenticated it, so that's why I'm going to mention it. Look how he met Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. His grandson said he traveled from Spain to Baghdad. When it was land, when it was water, he'd go on a ship. When it was land, he never used a camel. It was always walking because he was physically known to be strong. Look at a map when you go home and look at where Andalus, Spain is, and look where Iraq is. You have to go through Spain, Morocco, through Algeria, through Tunisia, through Libya, through Egypt, through Palestine, and through Jordan. Then you get to Iraq to learn one or two hadith. A continent. The man went to learn from Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Musnad Imam Ahmad has 30,000 hadith in it. Right now you can go on your laptop and download 30,000 hadith from Musnad Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal within 3 minutes. He traveled the continent not to get 30,000 hadith, to get 2 or 3 hadith. They honored knowledge, so Allah honored them. When he got to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal's house, the fitna had broke out. And guess where Ahmad ibn Hanbal is? Yeah, in prison. He said, I got very depressed and I got sad. So he went to the hotel room, rented a hotel room in Baghdad, put his belongings there, funduk. He called it a funduk, which is a hotel. Then he went to the masjid, seeking any halaqah to get his mind off what happened, that he can't meet Imam Ahmad because Imam Ahmad is in prison. So after Salah, he heard a man speak. And he was knowledgeable. A knowledgeable man can tell another peer of his if he's knowledgeable or not. He said, who's this man? He told him, this is Yahya ibn Ma'in. Yahya ibn Ma'in is close to the level of Imam Ahmad al-Hadith. So he got very excited. He said, this is the hardship a little bit, slightly, of me not meeting Imam ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal. So I went to Yahya ibn Ma'in and I began to ask him, like it is the routine of people of Hadith. What do you think about this man? What do you think about this man? What do you think about this man? Until the student shouted and said, there's other people who have questions. So I said, Yahya, but one more question. What do you say about the status of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal? He's documenting all this. So Yahya ibn Ma'in looked at Baqy ibn Makhlad. He said, you ask me about Imam Ahmad? That's the Imam of the Muslims. That's the best and most honored man of our time. Imam Ahmad, right after this, was released from prison to a house prison. In his house, he was placed on prison. He can't leave for nothing. He can't teach. So Baqy ibn Makhlad snuck his way to the house of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, knocked on the door, said, Abu Abdullah, that's the nickname of Imam Ahmad. He said, yes. He said, I come from a long distance to learn from you. He said, from Africa? Imam Ahmad said, he said, no, further from Africa. Because Spain is beyond the waters. In order to get to Africa, you got to go through water to get to Africa, then make your journey through. So Imam Ahmad said, I wish I could teach you, but as you see my situation, I'm on restrictions. And I don't see no one worthy of being taught than you if you came all this distance to learn. He was on house restriction and house arrest and restrictions. Baqy ibn Makhlad said, no one knows me here. I'm a stranger. I can carry a stick and put a dirty rag on my head and play as if I'm a beggar. And when I get to your house, they'll assume I'm a beggar and you let me in as if I'm going to get a meal. Every day he goes to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal's house wearing a dirty rag and a stick and lillah, lillah, for the sake of Allah, for the sake of knocking on doors. When he gets to Ahmad ibn Hanbal's house, Ahmad ibn Hanbal lets him in. People think he's knocking on these doors, he's a beggar. Look what they had to go through to learn a hadith in two. He goes in, people thinking he's going to eat his meal and he's going to absorb his knowledge. And so people, the spies won't get suspicious. Imam Ahmad gives him a couple hadith a day until it reached approximately 300 hadith. The leader changed during this time. And Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal's status changed from a man who's in house arrest to a legend and a hero who can teach wherever he wants to, where people came to him from all over the world. But Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal always respected this man. And when this Baqy bin Makhlad would come to the classes and Imam Ahmad would see him, he'd make a spot next to him and tell Baqy ibn Makhlad to come sit next to him. One day Baqy bin Makhlad vanished. So Imam Ahmad said, where's Baqy bin Makhlad? They told him he's sick at home. Imam Ahmad said, let's go visit him. So the students of knowledge follow along with Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Imagine thousands of people, pen, ink, feathers, waiting. He could say something on the way there that they need to document it. When they get to the hotel, Baqy ibn Makhlad is there. He said, I heard the hotel shake and it couldn't absorb Imam Ahmad and his students. The owner of the hotel came running to me. He said, the Imam of the Muslims is coming to visit you, to see you, to check up on you. I have a tenant that the Imam of the Muslim comes to visit. Even the ignorant people there, even the people who were regular people, respected the ulama. So Imam Ahmad visited him, made dua and left. Baqy ibn Makhlad used to joke after that. He said, ever since Imam Ahmad visited me that day, the owner of the hotel, the owner of the funduk, began to respect me. He cut the fares off from my hotel, the fees, and he used to tell people, respect me very much, and tell people, this is a student of the Imam of the Muslim. I have a tenant who's a student of the Imam of the Muslim. Baqy ibn Makhlad, as his grandson said, he used to stand against the oppressors. When a man came to Baqy ibn Makhlad who was wrong, he was oppressed, from Ishbilia, still known till today, a town still known in Spain today, far away from Mizah, Baqy ibn Makhlad walked with him all the way down to Ishbilia to get his right back. And then Al-Bira, another similar situation. A man comes from there, he says, Baqy, I need your help to get my rights back. Baqy ibn Makhlad goes with him. A woman one time walked from Jayyan, a week older woman. She's riding, she wants her rights back from someone who wronged her. She's riding and he's walking. He goes to Jayyan, gets her rights back and returns back. These are towns still known till today. This was a man moved by those surrounding him. When they were wrong, he would jump up to their defense. That's how real ulama are. They're not just muhaddithin like this man. Some scholars said the best tafsir and the best hadith, like I told you, were his. Did he say, I'm going to convey my knowledge, my hadith and tafsir, recline back and say, you know what? I did my duty. The ulama, the righteous ulama, let me say, were in the forefront center in helping the wronged and oppressed whenever they were wronged and weak, whenever they could. They were the first to jump for the cause, the righteous ulama, the first to jump for the causes of this ummah. True Islamic knowledge is not static. Muhaddithin, fuqaha, mufassirin were always moved to helping the wronged, the weak, the poor. Even if it's going to subject them to some harm and put them on the line or put the spotlight on them. If you see a shaykh not in the forefront advocating for matters of the oppressed and weak in this ummah, his knowledge is a catastrophe upon him. That's if he really has substantive knowledge. Non-Muslim human rights groups participate in a campaign to get a brother out of prison. A brother who for 6 years hasn't even spoken to his family. 10 years with no trial. He doesn't even know what he did. When Muslims tweet in a campaign and ask their scholars to come, their scholars don't join. If you have an issue with what the man said, that's not time to discuss it. And it wasn't even the issue. The thing is, give the man a trial if he did something wrong. Stop the physical and mental torture. Let him call his family so they can hear and see that and know that he really is alive. Like a brother said to the scholars, he said, the humanitarian rights organization join and you guys don't join. You know, if they have time from the mountain of Arafat and Mina to sit and tweet and go on Facebook, precious seconds over there, and oppose those who tell them, why are you not in ibadah 24/7 in that area? You know that they're reading and know the situation of what's going on, especially when a direct message is sent to them, especially when brothers call them, especially when some even got spoken to on a personal basis. The reason for this long introduction is really something his grandson, this is the point of it. Baqy ibn Makhlad's grandson said, Abdurrahman ibn Ahmad said, my father Ahmad said, that and this is going to be in Tarikh al-Umam ibn al-Jawzi. A woman came to Baqy ibn Makhlad, and she said, Baqy, my son has been held captive by the Romans. I can't find peace during the day or night. A mother in agony over her son. I can't sleep because I miss him. I can't find patience or peace or tranquility in my life. She's basically saying, Baqy, my son is a prisoner with the Romans and I'm going to lose my mind. You know how a mother is when she's separated from her son. Separating the soul is easier than separating a mother from her son. Out of all the ulama, why did she go to Baqy ibn Makhlad even though his abilities were less and even though he had no positions? Because when people are in hardship, they know the genuine ulama to turn to. They really do. Others may have more resources, but the genuine people in hardships know that the genuine ulama are the ones who are going to help them and not fight for the kuffar against their weak and oppressed brothers. She said, all I have, Baqy ibn Makhlad, is a duwaira. Sell it for me, help me sell it, and take the ransom and free my son. Duwaira is like a term in Arabic that she used for a small house, possibly a shack or something like that. Baqy said, wait until I look into this matter, inshallah. He then lowered his head, began to utter, his lips moved, and he made dua for her son to be freed. It was shortly thereafter that she returned with her son. She said to Baqy ibn Makhlad, listen, may Allah have mercy to what he has to say. The Shaykh said, what's your situation, son? How did you get out? He said, we were serving the king. They would take us to work in the desert all day until right before sunset. They would bring us back. You know how they did it back then? They have shackles on your foot and a long chain. He said one day the shackle fell off and I became loose. The guard said, cursed me, and he said, why did you remove the shackle off your foot? He's telling the Shaykh, he said, I told him, Ya Shaykh, I told him, Wallahi, I did not feel, I did not do that. It just fell off by itself. The guard went and got a forger, one who fixes metal. He fixed it, he tightened it stronger than before and put it back on his foot. He said, as soon as I got up, it broke open again. So they fixed it, closed again. The third time, as soon as I got up after they fixed it, I took a few steps and it broke off again. 3 times. So they went to their priest to ask him, why is this happening? The priest said, bring him here, let me talk to him. He asked the young man, he said, do you have a mother? He said, yes. He said, she made dua for you and Allah answered her dua. Let him go. There's no way we can keep someone captive who Allah wants free. The priest knew it was dua. He assumed it was possibly the mother's, but in reality it was Baqy ibn Makhlad's dua. They sent guards with him to make sure he reaches the border of the Muslim land safe, and they told him, you're free to go. Baqy ibn Makhlad had a follow-up question. He said, when was the precise time the shackle broke off? When the young man told him, it turned out to be the same moments Baqy ibn Makhlad lowered his head down and began to move his lips. Baqy ibn Makhlad died shortly after this, approximately 276 after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu rahimahullah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the answer of our dua as he did to Baqy ibn Makhlad. When you ask what you should do to help prisoners or the weak and oppressed Muslims, don't ever minimize the power of dua. Shafi'i rahimahullah said, أتهزأ بالدعاء وتزدريه وما تدري بما صنع الدعاء. You mock dua or you minimize its power, but you don't know what dua does. سهام الليل لا تخطي ولكن لها أمد وللأمد انقضاء. The arrows of the night never miss. They have a destiny and they're going to reach that destiny. People call and visit situations and problems in this ummah today that wallahi make a baby's hair turn white. The issue, for example, of prisoners. Just to name one of many. In the history of Islam, never do I know of where, and I've read many volumes of history books, where prisoners were neglected like they were today. In the lowest of low points, in historic points where the historian said, we don't want to even write about this portion because the Muslims were so low, the prisoners had more respect by the Muslims than they do today. Ibn Taymiyyah, in one of the lowest, darkest points of the history of the Muslims, when prisoners were taken, he would go himself and seek their release. He was no Khalifa. Ibn Taymiyyah was no governor. Ibn Taymiyyah had no position, no government position. As a scholar, not as a scholar, he went as a Muslim. In the 28th volume of Fatawa, page 616, I want you to read it. He talks about himself. He said, I went to Ghazan Shah, one of the leaders of the Tatar who respected Ibn Taymiyyah. And I told him, I want the release of the prisoners. Out of respect to Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, okay, I'm going to release all the Muslim prisoners. He said, no. The people of the book, the Jews and Christians who you took with our prisoners, need to be released with the Muslims. And Ibn Taymiyyah would not leave until they were all released. Both Jews and Christians. Ibn Taymiyyah getting, because prison is not a place to be. 2 or 3 days ago, when a sister called. Well, actually it was several calls, let me tell you. And she had an issue. She had a husband who's in prison. And children, no one supported them. One of them is sick. And she told me about her 3-year-old son and his sister. And she said every time someone comes near her or near the house, they bury their chest their head in their chest, fearing someone will take her because they seen the father being taken away. One who tells me how her son is missing, same day. One who told me how, email, how his brother was kidnapped from a country, he's in Europe waiting to be extradited to another country. Another concern, which I don't know, I have not confirmed yet, Melton, another concerned sister calls over a sister whose kids were taken and given custody to the grandparents because the father's in prison and they're going to grow up to be non-Muslims. All in one day. Wallahi, I shouldn't say it. When they speak to me, wallahi, I mute the phone and cry in agony. Horrific stories. I don't want them to hear and make their misery more. Stories of horror. What do? You get up, at least of it. Make wudu. Put your head in sujood and make dua and ask Allah that Allah answer your dua like He did answer Baqy ibn Makhlad's dua. If it melts my heart, and I say that about me, if it made my heart melt, and if it made my eyes cry, and if it made my heart weep, if it made me have a sleepless night out of mercy and compassion to what they told me, Allah saved 99 mercies for Himself. And He left one mercy on this earth from the time of the creation until the judgment day. One mercy we have here. 99 were saved to Allah the Almighty. Allah the Almighty saved 99. A bird that feeds his babies, a mom's mercy to her compassion, to her son, kids, is one mercy. 99 mercies Allah saved for Himself. So imagine if instead of complaining to me, they went, which I don't mind it, and if I can help, I will inshallah, but I'm saying, imagine if that same talk went in sujood to Allah the Almighty who reserved 99 mercies for Himself. Our ulama may not have the power of dua that Baqy ibn Makhlad have in their dua. But you masses of the ummah, I say surely do. You masses, you youth who are sincere, who nobody knows about your dua,